Level 1. The Unearthed Tablet. The crate opens at 2:14. Not with ceremony, not with music. Just the scrape of wood, the snap of two steel clasps, and the dry smell of old stone rising into a room built to keep truth from traveling. You stand in Archive Chamber 9, under white surgical lights, while 3 researchers stare into the crate like they expect it to blink first. A site director waits behind the glass. 2 security officers keep their hands near sealed sidearms. They are not cleared to use unless the room changes shape. Inside the crate lies a black stone tablet wrapped in lead cloth. No visible anomaly warning, no active containment field. Just one line, etched across the top, in a language older than any empire that officially mattered. The translation appears on your terminal 6 seconds later. Before kings, there were wardens. Before gods, there were witnesses. Nobody speaks. Then the site director says, "Begin the file." That is how it starts. At level 1, you are a junior historical analyst, attached to a buried division of the Foundation that does not study what anomalies do now. It studies what they already did to the world long before records become safe enough to print in books. You catalog inscriptions, cross-reference site recoveries, date organic residue, and compare ancient rituals to modern containment practices that are not supposed to resemble them. At first it sounds academic. Then you notice patterns. A cave mural in Anatolia showing a 7-eyed being locked behind concentric circles. A desert ruin in Libya with symbols identical to a classified containment sigil from Site 64. A Mesoamerican ceremonial pit whose walls match the geometry of a modern anti-mimetic chamber. To within 1.8 degrees, you tell yourself it is coincidence. The Foundation pays people to kill coincidence. By the 3rd week, you understand the first hidden rule of this department. Archaeology is just delayed containment. Artifacts are not relics, they are evidence, not of civilizations worshipping made-up gods, of civilizations surviving real things with whatever language fear gives them first. You stop reading myths as stories. You start reading them as witness statements damaged by time, ritual, and desperation. Flood gods become aquatic anomalies with territorial intelligence. Sun chariots become airborne entities described by people who never invent the word engine. Underworld journeys become early contact reports from places that do not obey distance or death the way ordinary geography should. Your supervisor, Dr. Norell, notices the shift in your notes. You stopped using the word legend, she says. You have, because the tablet on your desk is older than written law and still contains terminology matching a Foundation compartment created only 19 years ago. That should be impossible. Instead, here, it is a promotion. Level 2. Pattern Researcher. The wall map lights up at 1933. Pins appear one by one. Greece, Egypt, Peru, India, Siberia, Mesopotamia, northern Japan, the Atlantic Shelf, deep inland China. Each point is tied to a myth cycle older than the state that inherits it. Each cycle contains a god, beast, or divine punishment story. Each one now carries a second label beneath it, crossmatch, with anomalous activity confirmed. At level 2, you become a pattern researcher. You are no longer just processing artifacts. You are assembling the shape behind them. Timelines, migration arcs, overlapping symbol systems, identical sacrificial mathematics found in cultures separated by oceans they should not cross. Repeated descriptions of sky things descending before speech is ready. Mountain courts, sea judges, buried kings who do not remain buried. This is where the idea stops being a theory and becomes a threat. The old world does not just resemble SCP history, it is SCP history, with the names worn off. You work 14-hour shifts now. The office becomes colder because the server room beside it runs without interruption. Coffee disappears from your awareness. Days stop feeling separate. Every document seems to confirm something worse than the last one. The myths are not random inventions humans create to explain storms. They are damaged memories of territorial anomalies, ancient zones, ancient borders, ancient powers. The world is not empty in prehistory, waiting for humanity to define it. It is already divided. One region worships a storm god because a weather entity claims the mountain range and punishes metal during certain moon phases. Another fears a death goddess because a sinkhole system beneath the city takes the same number of people every solstice, unless ritual conditions are met. Entire priesthoods form not from religion first, but from containment labor that loses scientific language and hardens into ceremony. You find a scroll from a collapsed temple state in the Levant, describing the Silent Keeper, a masked order who carry iron rods, maintain perimeter braziers, and burn records after every manifestation. The procedures match a low-tech containment team, not symbolically, operationally. That is the moment your department changes tone. Security doubles outside the archive wing. 2 project heads from other sites arrive without warning. Administration seals your floor under a new compartment name. Your clearance jumps 2 levels in one morning and no one congratulates you. because the pattern is bigger than one discovery. If mythology is corrupted, SCP history, then human civilization is not built beside the anomalous. It is built on top of negotiated survival with it. At level 2, usefulness becomes your value. You stop being the junior analyst with good instincts. You become the one person in the room who can recognize that a Babylonian flood hymn and a redacted maritime breach report from 1987 describe the same entity using different centuries. That makes you important. It also means people start watching your face when new evidence appears, measuring how bad it is before they read the page themselves. You begin to understand reputation inside the Foundation, not brilliance, interpretive stability under impossible information. Level 3, Expedition. Historian. The rotor wash kicks dust into your teeth at 5:51. The helicopter settles on a stone plateau half a mile above a collapsed cliff temple that has no business existing in satellite imagery from 3 months ago. The pilot refuses to look directly at the ruin. The MTF team around you checks mags, anchors, radios, and reality stability meters. You carry no rifle. You carry a sealed case of old translations, carbon-scraped tablet, and a field codex bound in waterproof polymer. At level 3, you become an expedition historian. Now the work leaves the archive and follows you into the world. You are there because modern teams keep finding ancient sites that look less like worship and more like retired containment infrastructure. Circular trenches lined with obsidian, bone vaults with warning inscriptions in 6 languages no ordinary culture should know. Buried chambers where every wall depicts a different god being fed, chained, or bargained with in ways that resemble modern protocols too closely to dismiss. This expedition is in eastern Turkey. Official cover, Geological Instability Survey. Real objective, verify whether the temple complex below you belongs to the same historical network as the tablet that starts all of this. You know the answer before you descend. The stairwell proves it. 12 landings, every third one marked with a carved symbol, identical to a Foundation hazard seal for cognito-hazard exposure. At the bottom, you find a circular chamber with channels cut into the floor to redirect liquid toward a central dais. There are no altars, no treasure recesses, no funerary artwork, only warning geometry. Your gloves stick slightly when you touch the stone. Protein residue in the channels. Old, human. An MTF specialist asks what the chamber is. You answer before you have time to make it softer. A feeding protocol. No one jokes after that. At level 3, your power becomes interpretive command in the field. When the team finds a side room full of bronze masks, you determine whether they are ritual objects or perception filters. When a captain wants to breach an interior seal, you decide whether the carvings indicate burial, trap, or negotiated boundary. Your words change whether doors open. That responsibility changes you faster than the ruins do. An ordinary historian gets to love the past. You do not. You have to distrust it. Every poem might be a degraded warning. Every god name might be a containment alias. Every heroic myth might hide the fact that an ancient city survives, not through courage, but because it learns the exact number of goats, prisoners, or songs required to keep something in the mountain asleep. You stop thinking in terms of religion and start thinking in terms of transaction. That is the psychological shift at level 3. The past no longer feels human first. It feels occupied. Level 4, Custodian of Ancient Zones. The briefing room door locks at 23:08. 6 people sit at the table. 1 from Overwatch, 1 from Special Containment Procedures, 1 from Intelligence, 1 from External Affairs, 2 from your department. The screen at the far end shows a world map overlaid with mythic spheres of influence from 12 civilizations. Then a second layer appears, modern anomaly clusters. The overlap is nearly perfect. At level 4, you become a custodian of ancient zones. The title is not public even inside the Foundation. It means you no longer study dead history. You manage living territory whose ownership predates nation-states, language families, and most recorded law. The Foundation has finally accepted what your evidence proves. The world's mythologies are fragmentary maps of ancient anomalous jurisdictions, and many of those jurisdictions never fully disappear. They go dormant, they change names, they wait. This is where power enters your hands. You help determine which archaeological digs are secretly denied permits, which wars cannot be allowed to damage specific mountain chains, which shipping lanes must avoid certain coordinates every 11 years, which governments receive false environmental reports because the real pattern would reveal that their oldest sacred sites are still active SCP border markers. Ancient history becomes active policy. That should feel important. It feels infected, because the more accurate the model becomes, the less room remains for innocence. The gods are not symbolic. They are region-defining anomalies. The monsters in folktales are not inventions. They are descendants, shards, or lesser entities bred in the shadow of larger things humans once worshipped without understanding. Entire priest castes are early containment staff. Entire kingdoms rise because they negotiate well with local anomalies and fall when those negotiations fail. You approve your first suppression order at 1422. A research team in the Andes discovers a ceremonial city beneath glacial rock. Publicly, it could rewrite pre-Columbian history. Internally, it sits inside a still active territorial pattern, linked to 3 disappearances and 1 atmospheric distortion event. Excavation would be catastrophic, so you bury it. Officially, the site becomes unstable and inaccessible. Privately, the Foundation salts the records, reroutes funding, and convinces the host government the region carries unacceptable seismic risk. The world loses knowledge because you say, no. You tell yourself, it is containment. It is. It is also theft. At level 4, you start hearing your own arguments before others make them. Civilization cannot survive unrestricted truth. Archaeology without compartmentalization becomes breach risk. Human curiosity, unchecked, always walks back toward doors it is not built to reopen. The rationalizations are strong because they are partly right. That is how the system keeps you. Level 5, Architect of Mythic Containment. The first nation-state asks for the truth at 1104. Not all of it. Never that. Just enough to understand why 3 unrelated sacred sites in its northern provinces light up on Foundation satellite monitoring. Every time a nearby dam project enters drilling phase 2, you sit across from 2 ministers, 1 intelligence liaison, 1 Foundation diplomat, and a legal officer whose entire job is to make sure nobody in the room says anything that can survive outside it. At level 5, you are an architect of mythic containment. Now you design the arrangements that keep ancient anomalous zones stable in the modern world. You negotiate with states, redirect infrastructure, classify history, alter museum narratives, and help write the lies that protect both humanity and the fragile order built over ruins. The hidden rules become explicit here. Governments do not want the truth. They want survivable fractions of it. You give them fractions, enough to stop them blasting a tunnel into a buried threshold, not enough for them to connect their national creation myths to a territorial predator older than agriculture, enough to move a pipeline, not enough to realize their religious heritage site is also a dormant border node in a conflict between entities worshipped under different names by 2 civilizations that never officially meet. You become good at this, disturbingly good. A city in North Africa plans a rail expansion through a desert plateau. The plateau aligns with a dormant sun court zone, first documented in fragmented Libyan, Egyptian, and Roman sources under 3 different divine names. Historical activation cost, crop failure, mass blindness, localized glass formation. Modern activation probability, unknown. You block the line through environmental law, leak corruption charges, and a fabricated aquifer study. 10,000 people lose jobs tied to the project. Millions never know what almost wakes beneath them. That is the moral escalation of level 5. You stop choosing between truth and lies. You choose between different sizes of harm. The Foundation rewards that mindset with influence. Your recommendations shape policy. Directors defer to you on ancient site classification. Overwatch asks for your risk language before major excavations. Even researchers who hate administrative secrecy now admit that the world's oldest myth structure behave less like stories and more like loaded weapons buried under civilization. Your freedom decreases as your reach expands. Travel requires layered escort. Communications are filtered. Personal friendships outside work thin into abstraction because you can no longer answer even simple questions honestly. Why was your trip canceled? Why are you always tired? Why do you freeze when people jokingly call myths harmless fairy tales? Because fairy tales are what remain after the last people who understand containment die. You cannot say that, so you say nothing. Level 6, Keeper of the First Borders. The oldest map in the world is not on paper. It is under your boots at 447, etched across a basalt floor, a mile, beneath a collapsed site in central Anatolia. The chamber is circular, wide as a cathedral, and older than any city officially recognized nearby. The carvings do not show kingdoms. They show zones: sea, mountain, sky, ash, hollow, root, storm, night, not cultures, domains. At level 6, you are the keeper of the first borders. You have spent years proving mythology is SCP history. Now you stand inside the structure that makes the theory unavoidable. This chamber is not a temple, not a tomb, not a ritual center. It is a treaty room. Humanity does not invent gods to explain the world. Humanity inherits the map of powers already dividing it. The evidence is overwhelming. Border markers aligned to modern anomaly corridors, repeating sigils tied to entities later deified under dozens of names, sacrificial mathematics that function like stabilization ratio. One section of the floor, carved with a symbol you know from a black-level SCP file, so restricted that only 7 living personnel are supposed to have seen it, and yet it is here. 4,000 years earlier. That is when the last illusion dies. The Foundation does not merely contain anomalies in the modern age. It inherits the job from civilizations that fail, fragment, and mythologize their containment systems after language, empire, and science collapse around them. You are not discovering lost history anymore. You are standing in the administrative basement of human civilization. Power at level 6 is almost unbearable because it finally comes with total pattern recognition. You know why certain mountains remain sacred, why flood myths cluster around specific coasts, why underworld gods always demand exact things. Counted steps, counted dead, counted names, counted offering. Those are not religious quirks. Those are procedures remembered badly. You also know what this means strategically. If the old border system weakens, the world does not simply face isolated SCP events. It faces the return of regional anomalous sovereignties, large enough to rewrite human history back into fear and worship. That is why the Foundation will never release this. Not because people could not emotionally handle it, because knowledge this large is operationally destabilizing. At level 6, you become less a scholar than a guardian of a truth too structurally dangerous to tell. The cost is immediate. Your work is sealed above almost every ordinary clearance tier. Your name drops out of internal directory. Your research team becomes a compartment. Your life narrows to flights, vaults, briefings, ruins, and decisions that protect billions by erasing their right to know what built the ground beneath their myths. Somewhere above, another layer of authority will decide what to do with the map. Somewhere below, a new analyst is opening a warm black folder under white lights and reading the first translated line from a tablet older than kings. Before gods, there were witnesses. They think it is the start of a theory. You know it is the start of a burden.